All right, let's dive in. We're looking at the global entertainment industry today, specifically film and TV, as of March 18, 2025.
Yeah, lots going on.
Using Further and Better's global TV, film, and media industry news roundup. Think of it as our backstage pass to the trends and the triumphs, and, well, some challenges, too.
It really does cover it all.
It really does. And speaking of challenges, how about this One Village Roadshow? The studio behind, The Matrix, Joker. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
Wow.
I know. What happened? They've had some truly iconic hits.
Well, it seems that legal battle with Warner Bros.
Yeah.
Over The Matrix Resurrections really hit them hard. Over $18 million in legal fees. Can you believe that?
Ouch.
It's a big price to pay for disagreements. And I think it highlights a bigger issue we're seeing across the industry, even.
Oh, absolutely. I remember reading about that. Wasn't it about like releasing the film in theaters and on streaming at the same time? Sort of a hybrid approach?
Yeah, exactly. The whole how do we release movies these days? It's a power struggle, really. Traditional studios versus these streaming giants in this case. Well, it's like a tiny version of that whole shift.
A microcosm.
Yeah, exactly. And while Chapter 11, it's not the absolute end for Village Roadshow, it does make you think, how are studios going to adapt? How are they going to navigate this whole new world?
Yeah, it's a question a lot of people are asking.
Big question.
For sure. But speaking of adapting and actually thriving, how about this? China. Ne Zha 2, the animated film, just hit $2.03 billion at the box office.
I know, it's huge.
It's not just a win, it's the highest grossing animated film, well, ever.
Of all time, yeah. It's a big moment for the Chinese film industry, especially after everything, with the pandemic and the setbacks and all that. Shows real confidence and the ability, well, to just make films that people all over the world connect with.
I think you're right. It feels like global audiences are much more open now, to stories from different cultures. It wasn't that long ago that a foreign language film breaking records like this was unheard of.
Yeah, you're right. It makes you wonder, is this a one-off? Or is this like the start of something bigger? Will we see more Chinese films, especially animation, hitting it big internationally?
Definitely something to watch.
For sure.
Now, switching gears a bit, let's talk about something a lot of us experience. That feeling of just being overwhelmed by streaming services. I know I do. Scrolling and scrolling, trying to decide what to watch.
Oh, I feel that.
It's almost too much choice.
It is. It really is. It's called content fragmentation. And it's a problem, for sure. There was a study recently, and it found that viewers really struggle to even tell the difference between all these different streaming platforms, let alone choose what to watch.
So it's not just me.
Not just you. No,
That's good to know. But I'm curious, how are the streaming companies themselves dealing with this? Are they just throwing more and more content out there and hoping something sticks?
Well, one approach we're seeing is this. A focus on content with global appeal. Something that resonates across cultures. For example, critical content. They're the company behind hits like Catfish. They're partnering with NPAS-CT to develop, formats that can work anywhere.
So instead of catering to really specific niche audiences, they're going for those universally engaging stories.
That's the idea.
What's the thinking behind that?
Well, they're betting that in a market that's just so full, so oversaturated, stories that connect with everyone, regardless of where they're from, have a better chance of, standing out, cutting through the noise and getting people's attention.
Makes sense. It reminds me of how, I don't know, certain themes and emotions are just universal. No matter your background, you can relate to them. But while some are trying to bridge cultures, others are exploring the divisions within ourselves, right? Like, have you been watching Severance on Apple TV plus Woon?
I have.
That show, with its whole concept of, surgically separating your work memories from your personal life, it's really struck a chord.
It has.
And the term "innie" from the show, that feeling of being disconnected at work, it's become part of how we talk about work now.
It's wild, right? It's funny, but also kind of unsettling how much it resonates with people. With remote work and everything, the lines between our jobs and our personal lives, they're so blurry. It's almost like Severance is holding up a mirror, to all those anxieties.
Yeah. It's a really clever way to explore a very real issue that so many people are dealing with.
Absolutely.
Speaking of anxieties, this next story, it highlights a different kind of struggle. The fight for recognition in this industry. Did you see that Netflix show Celebrity Bear Hunt premiered and didn't even credit the development team?
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. It caused quite a stir online. Yeah.
It did. And it makes you realize how important that development stage is. These are the people who come up with the concept, do the research, refine the show, all before it even goes into production. They're often the unsung heroes, really.
They are, for sure. And, this incident, it raises a bigger question. How do we make sure everyone involved in a project gets the credit they deserve? Especially as the industry changes, with all these new platforms and ways of making things, how do we protect the rights of those who contribute to a project's success?
It's a conversation we need to have, for sure. It speaks to the whole, transparency and ethical practices in entertainment. It's a big deal.
It is.
Now, speaking of stories that shed light on different aspects of life, let's talk about documentaries. They seem to be exploding right now
Oh, they are.
and pushing boundaries
Big time.
in all sorts of fascinating ways. One that caught my eye is Super Paradise. It's about the Greek island of Mykonos.
I saw that, yeah.
It chronicles its evolution, from this quiet fishing village to a haven for hippies in the 70s, and then to the glamorous party island it is today.
Quite a transformation.
Yeah, right. It sounds like such a captivating blend of, cultural history and personal reflection. I read that the director, Steve Krikris, actually spent, his formative years on Mykonos.
Oh, wow.
That's got to add such a unique layer to the storytelling, right?
I bet you can feel that connection, I think, throughout the film. And speaking of personal journeys, there's another one that caught my eye. The Treasure Hunter. It follows this guy, the director's best friend, who invested millions in a quest to find buried Japanese treasure.
Billions.
Millions. In the Philippine jungle, no less.
Well, that sounds like something straight out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it? The documentary explores, that very question. What makes someone risk so much? What's the allure of the unknown? The power of legends? It's really fascinating.
I can imagine. So we've got one film diving into the depths of the jungle, and then another, Home Court, taking us to the heart of Athens. This one follows two young women who dream of being basketball stars.
Oh, I heard about this one. Inspiring story.
It is, right. What's interesting is that they're both daughters of African migrants, and they're facing, a lot of challenges on their path to success. It's a reminder that even in sports, these broader societal issues, they really come into play.
They do, absolutely. Their story highlights so much, the complexities of immigration, identity, and chasing your dreams in a world that doesn't always play fair.
So true. Now, shifting from real-life struggles to fictional narratives, let's talk about some of the upcoming projects generating buzz. We already mentioned J.J. Abrams' new crime thriller, Duster, but there's another one that's got people talking. Place to Be.
Oh, yeah, that one's got a great cast.
It does. Ellen Burstyn, Taika Waititi, even Pamela Anderson. What an interesting mix.
For sure. And the premise is pretty unique, too. It's a journey from Chicago to New York. But it's not your typical road trip. The characters, played by Burstyn and Waititi, they're on a mission to return a lost racing pigeon.
A racing pigeon.
A racing pigeon, yeah.
Yeah.
And Pamela Anderson plays Burstyn's daughter. She's navigating life after a second marriage and dealing with, her mother's care. It's got a lot going on.
Sounds like a poignant story. Family, connection, finding your place in the world. It's really interesting to see how filmmakers are exploring these themes through so many different kinds of stories.
Yeah, it's a good time for storytelling.
It is. And for those who love music and maybe a bit of nostalgia, it seems a classic film is getting a modern makeover. The Idolmaker, that 1980 film about a music producer who manufactures pop stars, it's getting reimagined.
Oh, wow. I loved that movie.
Me too. And they've brought in Sam Wrench, the director behind those amazing concert films for Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, to direct it.
Interesting choice. He's got a real knack for capturing the energy of live music.
He does. It feels like a perfect fit. But let's switch gears again, this time to the realm of science fiction. There's a project in development called The Longest Fall. It's based on a story by Luce Sixon, the author of The Three-Body Problem.
Oh, I know that book.
Oh, it's so good. And this adaptation, it's got my attention.
If you liked The Three-Body Problem, you'll probably love this too. It's all about deep space, survival, the immensity of the universe, those big, existential questions that science fiction does so well.
Thrilling and thought-provoking.
Exactly.
But we also need a little lighthearted entertainment, right? There's a new romantic comedy in the works, The Last Resort, starring Daisy Ridley and Alden Ehrenreich. It's about a woman scouting resort locations in the Philippines who falls for, a charming pilot. It does, doesn't it? Stunning scenery, witty banter, a dash of romance. But before you move on, I wanted to circle back to a documentary that's been causing a bit of controversy. He said, she said, Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. It delves into those allegations of misconduct, made by Blake Lively against her. It ends with us, co-star, Justin Baldoni, and his defamation lawsuit. It's a whole thing.
Oh, I heard about this. It's a messy situation.
It is. It's a reminder that even in the world of entertainment where everything seems so glamorous and aspirational, real-life conflicts happen.
They do. And legal battles, they get complex.
They do. It'll be interesting to see how the documentary handles it all,
Yeah.
presenting both sides of this story fairly.
Yeah, for sure. Now, going back to something we talked about earlier, AI. The role of AI in entertainment. It's clearly a hot topic, and it's sparking excitement and concern.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
On one hand, you've got the potential, right?
Yeah.
Streamlining processes, enhancing creativity, even making filmmaking tools more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
But then there are the anxieties, job displacement, the ethics of AI-generated content, and losing that human touch in storytelling. It's a lot.
It's a lot to consider. I mean, are we comfortable with AI-generated scripts or performances? Where do we draw the line between human creativity and machine-assisted art? Those are the big questions.
Huge questions.
And there are no easy answers.
Definitely not. But amidst all this talk of AI, it's important to remember the power of human stories.
Couldn't agree more.
Whether it's a documentary about a changing island, a sci-fi epic about the cosmos, or a rom-com set in paradise, stories connect us, move us, and challenge how we see the world.
That's what it's all about.
And speaking of trends, we've seen quite a few during this deep dive. From the globalization of content to the fight for fair credit and compensation, and the evolving role of streaming services.
And the rise of documentaries tackling these complex issues.
Right, and that looming presence of AI.
Definitely a lot to unpack.
It is. It's clear that the entertainment industry is a dynamic and ever-changing landscape. But before we move on to our final thoughts, let's take a moment to reflect. What stood out to you the most during this exploration? What surprised you? What challenged your assumptions? Or sparked your curiosity?
I'd love to hear your thoughts, too.
We'd love to hear from you, our listeners.
Let us know. You're so right. Documentaries, they're really pushing boundaries these days, exploring all sorts of, fascinating subjects. One that caught my eye, Super Paradise, a film about Mykonos.
Mykonos.
Yeah, the Greek island. And it chronicles this, amazing evolution. It starts as this sleepy fishing village, then becomes a haven for, 70s hippies.
I can picture it.
And then, boom, the glamorous party island it is today.
What a transformation.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And it sounds like such a, captivating blend of cultural history, and personal reflection. The director, Steve Krikris, he actually spent his, younger years on Mykonos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think that adds this whole other layer to the storytelling.
Absolutely. Speaking of personal journeys, there's another documentary I was reading about, The Treasure Hunter. It follows the director's best friend who invested, wait for it, millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
In a quest to find buried Japanese treasure.
I know, it's crazy.
In the Philippine jungle, no less.
It's a wild story.
What compels someone to risk so much, on a treasure hunt?
Right. It's a good question. And the documentary, it explores that. It delves into this whole allure of the unknown, the power of legends. It's really fascinating.
I bet. So we've got one film diving into the depths of the jungle and then another, Home Court. This one takes us to Athens and follows two young women who dream of being, basketball stars.
Oh, this one's great. I saw the trailer. It looks so inspiring.
Yeah, it does. What's so intriguing is that they're both daughters of African migrants, and they're facing all these challenges, on their path to success. It's a good reminder that even in the world of sports, these broader societal issues, they're always there.
Always. Their story really highlights the complexities of it all. Immigration, identity, and just chasing your dreams in a world that doesn't always give everyone equal opportunities.
So true. Now let's shift gears a bit, from real-life struggles to fictional narratives. What about some of these upcoming projects? We talked about J.J. Abrams' new crime thriller, Duster, but there's another film generating buzz, Place to Be.
Oh, that one's got a fantastic cast.
It does, right? Ellen Burstyn, Taika Waititi, Pamela Anderson even.
It's a great mix.
And the premise is so unique. It's a journey from Chicago to New York.
A road trip.
Kinda, but not your typical one. The characters, played by Burstyn and Waititi, they're on this mission to return a lost racing pigeon.
A racing pigeon? Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? And Pamela Anderson plays Burstyn's daughter. She's, navigating life after a second marriage, dealing with her mother's care.
Sounds like a lot.
It does. It sounds poignant, though. Family, connection, finding your place in the world.
Those are big themes.
They are. And it's interesting to see how filmmakers are exploring these themes through so many different types of stories.
Hmm.
Now, for those who love music and maybe a little nostalgia, it seems like a classic film is getting a modern makeover.
Oh, which one?
The Idol Maker. You know that 1980 film about a music producer who manufactures pop stars?
I loved that movie.
Me too.
Oh,
It's being reimagined.
yeah.
And they've brought in Sam Wrench, the director behind those incredible concert films for Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, to direct it.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Huh.
He's so good at capturing, the energy and emotion of live music.
It feels like a perfect fit. Now let's jump over to the world of science fiction. There's this project in development, The Longest Fall. It's based on a story by Lou Sixon, the author of The Three-Body Problem.
I know that book. It was so good.
Right. I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
And this adaptation, it's definitely got my attention.
If you liked The Three-Body Problem, you probably love this too. Deep space survival, the vastness of the universe, those big existential questions that science fiction just does so well.
It sounds thrilling and thought-provoking, too.
Exactly. But we can't forget about, a little lighthearted entertainment. There's a new romantic comedy in the works, The Last Resort. Daisy Ridley and Alden Ehrenreich are starring in it.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
It's about a woman scouting resort locations in the Philippines, and, well, she falls for a charming pilot. Sounds like a good escape.
It does, doesn't it? Stunning scenery, witty banter, a little romance. Before we move on, though, I did want to circle back to a documentary that's been generating some controversy.
Oh, which one?
It's called He Said, She Said. Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. It looks at those misconduct allegations, made by Blake Lively against her. It ends with Us co-star Justin Baldoni and his defamation lawsuit. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I heard about that. It's a tough situation.
It is. It reminds us that even in this world, entertainment, where everything seems so glamorous and, aspirational, real-life conflicts happen.
They do. And legal battles, they get complicated.
For sure. It'll be interesting to see how the documentary navigates all of that, presenting both sides fairly.
It'll be a challenge.
Now, going back to something we touched on earlier, AI. The role of AI in the entertainment industry. It's definitely sparking a lot of conversation, both excitement and concern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, on the one hand, you've got the potential. AI could revolutionize everything: script writing, production, visual effects, even distribution. But then there's the other side.
The anxieties.
Exactly. Job displacement, the ethics of AI-generated content. What does it mean if a machine is telling our stories? And do we risk losing that essential human touch?
It's a lot to think about.
It really is.
I keep wondering, where do we draw the line between human creativity and machine-assisted art? Is a film less impactful if it was written or even directed with the help of AI?
Yeah.
These are huge questions.
They are, and it feels like we're just starting to, grapple with them.
Yeah, it's a conversation that's going to keep evolving. As AI gets more sophisticated and becomes more integrated into the industry, it'll get even more complex.
I think you're right.
But even as we think about these big questions, it's important to remember, what makes entertainment so powerful in the first place?
The human element.
Exactly. It's about connecting with each other through shared experiences, whether it's a documentary that takes us somewhere new, a sci-fi epic that makes us think about the universe, or a rom-com that just, makes us feel good. Stories have this power. They move us, challenge us, remind us of what it means to be human.
That's what it's all about.
And that power, it goes beyond any technology or trends.
It's timeless.
And speaking of trends, we've seen so many emerge during this deep dive. The globalization of content, the fight for fair credit and compensation, the evolution of streaming.
The rise of documentaries tackling those complex issues, the looming presence of AI. It's been a lot.
It has. The entertainment industry, it's dynamic. It's ever-changing. But before we get to our final thoughts, let's take a moment. What has stood out to you the most during this exploration? What's surprised you? Challenged your assumptions? Sparked your curiosity?
What about you? What were your biggest takeaways?
We'd love to hear your thoughts too, listeners. Let's keep the conversation going. Wow, it's amazing to think about everything we've covered. From, the financial struggles of a major studio to the global success of that Chinese animated film Ne Zha 2. And all the ethical questions around crediting and, of course, AI looming over everything.
Yeah, it really paints a picture, doesn't it, of where the entertainment industry is at right now.
It does. It does. As we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to, step back and look at the big trends. And one that's impossible to ignore is, globalization. We've seen it everywhere. Ne Zha 2, the partnerships forming to create content for global audiences. even the casting choices in some of these upcoming movies.
It's everywhere, yeah.
It really makes you realize that, I don't know, audiences today, they're more connected than ever. The stories that work, that resonate, they have to go beyond cultural boundaries.
They do, they do.
It seems like there's this real hunger for diverse voices, diverse narratives.
Yes, stories that reflect, how complex our world actually is.
And this globalization, it's both exciting and challenging.
Yeah, it is.
On one hand, you've got this incredible exchange of ideas, exposure to different cultures.
Yeah.
But then there are the questions,
Like, how do you make sure creators are being compensated fairly?
Exactly. How do you protect intellectual property across borders?
Yeah.
How do you make sure this global exchange is actually, equitable?
Big questions.
It's a good reminder that as much as technology connects us, we have to prioritize, ethical considerations, human values, even in this global entertainment landscape.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of technology, I think we have to address the elephant in the room, AI.
The big one.
The role of AI in entertainment. It's generating so much buzz. And rightfully so. I mean, it has the potential to change everything.
It does, yeah.
Script writing, production, visual effects, even how movies are distributed. But then there's the flip side.
The worries.
Exactly. Jobs, for one. What happens when machines can do what humans do?
Yeah. And then there are the ethical questions.
Like, what does it even mean if a machine is telling our stories?
Right. Do we lose that human touch?
Yeah.
That, that special something that comes from human creativity?
Yeah, it's a big one.
It really is. I keep asking myself, where do we draw the line between human creativity and, machine-assisted art?
It's a tough question.
Is a film less impactful if it was written or even directed with the help of AI? I don't know.
I don't know either.
It feels like we're just starting to, wrap our heads around it all.
We are. And as AI keeps getting better, more sophisticated, more integrated into everything, it's only going to get more complex.
I think you're right. But even with all these big questions swirling around, I think it's so important to remember why we love entertainment in the first place.
The core of it.
Why it matters. It's about human connection.
Yeah.
Sharing experiences, emotions, through stories. Whether it's a documentary that takes us to another world, a sci-fi epic that blows our minds, or a rom-com that just, makes us feel good. Stories have this power to move us, to make us think, to remind us of our shared humanity.
Could have said it better myself.
And that power, it goes beyond any technology or trends.
It's timeless.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the entertainment industry, we encourage you, our listeners, to keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, keep engaging with the stories that resonate with you.
Yeah, don't be afraid to dive in.
The landscape is always changing, but the power of storytelling, well, that's a constant. Until next time, stay curious.